Look at the United Kingdom on a map today, and you see a relatively small island. But zoom out, and a strange reality appears.
Britain still actively controls 14 overseas territories scattered around the planet, from Gibraltar to the Falkland Islands. At its peak, this single nation held dominion over a full quarter of the Earth's surface. Britain built the largest empire in human history by repeatedly surviving its own disasters, turning every systemic failure into a new strategic pivot. Rewind to the 1500s. England was in a remarkably weak position. They couldn't even secure their own borders, constantly fighting and losing to an independent Scotland. Their early attempts to expand overseas were complete disasters. The first English settlement in America, Roanoke Island, disappeared entirely, leaving a mystery. State-sponsored colonization simply was not working at all. That string of embarrassing failures forced the English crown to invent a completely new approach to global expansion. In 1600, they shifted the financial burden away from the government by inventing the joint stock company. The crown outsourced empire costs. Investors pooled money into the East India Company, eventually raising private armies. While English wealth climbed, Scotland's finances plummeted. In 1698, the Scots' state-funded colony in Panama failed spectacularly, nearly bankrupting their entire country. England capitalized on that exact financial collapse. They offered to bail out Scotland on the strict condition that the two nations unite. In 1707, the Kingdom of Great Britain was born. By privatizing the risks of global conquest and absorbing their northern rival, Britain suddenly possessed an endless funding mechanism and a completely secure home base. They needed that stability because their next massive failure was imminent. By taxing the 13 American colonies without granting them representation, Britain sparked a rebellion and lost America in 1783. Instead of retreating, they immediately pivoted their attention toward the Pacific. Captain James Cook mapped New Zealand and the eastern coast of Australia, which Britain quickly repurposed into a vast penal colony. To protect these new, distant routes, they had to eliminate their naval rivals. In 1805, at the Battle of Trafalgar, the British fleet destroyed the combined French and Spanish navies, securing absolute ocean supremacy for a century. With the oceans entirely under their control, Britain heavily concentrated on Asia. They consumed the Indian subcontinent, turning it into the primary wealth engine for the empire. This global map traces the peak of their resulting infrastructure. The wealth extracted from India and Africa funded the Suez Canal and the All Red Line, a vast telegraph network sending messages instantly from London to its furthest outposts. Losing America forced Britain to look east. That failure pushed them to build a far more lucrative, highly connected network across Africa and Asia than they ever would have constructed otherwise. But the empire eventually encountered a crisis it could not pivot out of. The two world wars completely drained the British treasury. To survive those conflicts, Britain leaned heavily on the empire. They extracted immense raw materials and relied on millions of colonial troops who fought and died for a country thousands of miles away. The massive financial debt made holding the territories impossible. Through the 1950s and 60s, Prime Minister Harold Macmillan recognized the unstoppable momentum of independence, famously dubbing it the wind of change. One by one, nations broke away. The final major physical presence evaporated in 1997, when Britain officially handed Hong Kong back to China. Corporate maneuvering and naval strategy built the empire, but absolute financial exhaustion broke it. Today, the physical empire is gone, yet 14 nations still recognize the British monarch as their head of state, and dozens gather regularly under the banner of the Commonwealth. The true legacy lives in the invisible infrastructure left behind: modern legal frameworks, standardized railway gauges, political borders, and the English language itself. The British Empire's legacy is the modern world's operating system, a global infrastructure born from centuries of desperate, relentless adaptation.